Hello everybody, thank you for joining me. I'm Rory Holliday, the physiotherapist. Today we're going to be doing some work on hamstring release. So I'm going to put together a little package of my favourite techniques for getting those hamstring muscles just to relax and let go and help you with flexibility. It's not the total list, there's many ways of doing this, but this is just my favourite bunch of exercises. If you've got a problem with hamstring release, if you feel like you're quite stiff in your hamstrings, or you know that flexibility is an issue for you, then this is a good place to start. If I learned one thing though, is that these muscles don't improve their flexibility quickly, so don't expect quick gains. It requires consistent work on your part to keep that flexibility going, and also to consider that lack of flexibility sometimes is a suggestion that something else is going on somewhere else where you might be a bit weak. So you might be a bit stiff in the hammies because you're weak elsewhere. So it might not be just a case of releasing and relaxing these muscles to get things going. Okay, we're going to need a couple of bits of equipment for this today. So we're going to be using a foam roller, we're going to be using a resistance band, either a fake resistance band or a belt will do the job, and we're going to be using a chair or a stool for a bit of a stretch later on as well. So we're going to start off using the foam roller. If you've not used one of these before, or if you haven't got one, you can substitute with something like a tennis ball, cricket ball, something like that will do a similar job. If you can get your hands on a foam roller, they are really useful for this kind of work. So we're going to be sitting down with the foam roller behind our leg, and I'm going to choose this leg facing you here first of all. I'm going to get the roller right up, high as I can go, hands go behind me. This leg stays on the floor with the foot on the floor, and I'm just going to lift my bottom up. And then all I'm going to do is allow my leg to roll on the roller. So I suppose I'm pushing away with the other foot, pulling forwards, and we're just going to go backwards and forwards. I'm going to turn my foot outwards a little bit to get to the back of the hamstring on the outside. I'm going to turn it inwards a little bit to get to the hamstring on the inside. So we've got four main muscles that contribute the hamstrings, and they range from the inner thigh all the way almost to the outer thigh. So we've got a broad area to work on from the back of the knee crease right up to the bum cheek, so we can get nice long sweeps on this movement. And if you find that there's a particular spot that's a bit tender, spend a bit of time working around that, getting a little bit more comfortable with it before you really load the pressure on. And we can load the pressure on by using a bit more weight. We're going to cross the other leg over, so there's more body weight going through that hamstring onto the roller. And if you wish, if it's harder to control the long sweeps now, then just concentrate on the small portion of the muscle that feels the most tender or thickened or stiff. And then we can move down a little bit, work a little bit further down the hamstring. We can turn that foot inwards, work the inner hamstring. So you get the idea. You can go hunting around for it and put in a little bit more load in, makes it a little bit more effective. Okay, and that benefit is going to be relatively temporary. It's a bit like having a massage, and it will make those muscles a little bit more relaxed for a short period. Whilst you've got that bit of relaxation in there, now's a good time to give it a stretch. And we're going to go through three main stretching types. We're going to do a stretch using a band, and if you've got resistance band or a bungee cord to use, that's ideal, but you can mimic this with a belt that doesn't stretch. So I'm going to double my band over. I'm going to put popping that over my foot, just around the ball of the foot to the little toe area. I'm going to lower myself back. I've got notoriously short hamstrings, so this is a challenge for me. The other leg goes flat down on the floor. We're not leaving it bent. If we can, we straighten it down, and then head back. From there, I'm going to push my knee as straight as I can go with it. That increases the stretch in the back of the leg. I'm going to hold that for about 10 seconds, and then I'm going to slowly ease that off. We can start a little bit lower if that's uncomfortable, so you're pushing away over there a little bit more. Doesn't really matter where you start. You're going to keep going with this, incrementally increasing the height of the foot until you feel like you reach that point where, yeah, that's quite tight, I don't want to go any further. We hold that pressure, 10 seconds, back off for 10 seconds. When you've had a little rest in that position, push out again. And when you're at that point where you're meeting that restriction in the back of the leg, then you would probably repeat that cycle in that area 3 or 4 times. Okay. So let's imagine we've done that 3 or 4 times, you've slowly eased a little bit more range out of that, and we're going to move into a different type of stretch. So that's a really sort of low level on-off stretch. We're not sustaining high levels of stretch, it's just touching that point of tension. A little point If you're getting any pins and needles or numbness in your feet whilst you're doing that, or any symptoms down the back of the leg other than a stretch, ease off. Whilst you're in that position, your sciatic nerve, tibial nerve, and all of its branches are getting a real big stretch, which is okay for short periods, but we don't want to hold it for too long. Okay, so that was 3-4 cycles of 10 seconds at the level that you find you've got the restriction. So now we're going to go into a kneeling position. Okay, so I'm going to pop the leg that we're going to stretch out in front of us. If you need something to put your hand on, like your foam roller for a little bit of balance, that's absolutely fine. I'm going to try and get that heel as far away from me as I can manage. Like I said, I've got tight hamstrings. I struggle to straighten that knee out, but if you can straighten the knee out, do. From there, we're going to bow forwards to the point where it increases that tension, which for me isn't very far. We're going to get that stretch, we're going to hold that, and we're going to breathe with that stretch. 30 seconds of gentle breathing, okay? Now, little pointer of this stretch. When we get to where it's tight, your body likes to take the path of least resistance. So my body wants to turn this way to get away from the stretch. If I turn my body and pelvis in the direction my foot's pointing, then we're going to get a bigger stretch in that back of the thigh. So just think about keeping the body square. Don't let the pelvis start to point away from the leg. Okay, so we're going to ease off of that for a moment, and you might switch sides at this point, so you're alternating sides. Likewise with the previous one, you switch sides with it. Now what I'm going to do is try and target the outside hamstrings a little bit more. So I'm going to roll my heel outwards a little, so my toes are pointing over towards you a little bit, and I can allow the knee to bend a little bit with this. And then again I'm going to bow forward, so I'm not letting the back round. I'm keeping the back as flat as I can as I bow. We get a little bit more of a stretch bias to the outside. The whole of the hamstrings get in a stretch, but it's a little bit more biased to the outside. And again, I can bias it to the outside even more by bringing my body to face that foot a little bit more. So if I have this support on the other side and I deliberately rotate myself around, we're going to get a little bit more tension on the outside of that thigh. Okay, so we've got our 30 seconds of breathing in that position. Now I'm going to target that inner hamstring a little bit more. So I'm going to roll onto the inside border of that heel and then bow forwards from there. Okay. And again, nice stretch, goes to the inner thigh a little bit more, breathing 30 seconds in that position, repeating each side. Now you might find having it out to the sides quite easy. You bring it into the middle, oh, that's a little bit tighter. That might be the one you want to focus on and repeat that over a couple of times. But experiment with this one. Try the different positions, see how it feels. Remember, we're keeping the pelvis square to the rest of the leg. Okay? And we're breathing all the way through a good 30-40 second stretch, easing off with that knee bend at the end of it. Okay, last stretch for this. Now, when we straighten the knee out, we're stretching the whole hamstring, but we're probably targeting the bottom half of the hamstrings a little bit more. We're going to try and target a little bit higher up here by taking a little bit of the tension out of the back of the knee and focusing it into the shorter parts of the muscle higher up. That's why we need the chair. I'm going to put the chair somewhere where it's not going to slide away from me, so I'm popping it on my mat, and I'm going to put my foot up onto the chair, and I'm deliberately lunging into this position. Okay, so that back knee bends down and my heel lifts. I'm going to try and keep that knee going straight forwards as opposed to letting it roll inwards. And then I'm going to try and keep my tailbone pointing outwards behind me, so my back stays curved inwards here. It'd be very easy for me to slump into this and it doesn't really get to that hamstring. We're going to stay nice and tall in the back, knee bends underneath you to lower you down into that stretch. If your hip joint is healthy and mobile, it should allow you to get to a point where you get a bit of a stretch in the hamstring down here. If your hip joint's a bit stiff, it might pinch in the front. If it's doing that, just back out of it. This one's probably not for you. But all the other ones are going to be quite okay. So again, we'll probably have 30 seconds in this position. Ease out of it gently, we'll switch sides, try the other side for 30 seconds, bending that knee, dropping into it as low as we can go, keeping that back flat, tailbone pointed out, just to get that stretch down into the underside of that hamstring. Okay, 3 or 4 times on each side for 30 seconds would be a good amount, and that makes for probably a good 10-minute stretch session. I think that if you're stretching your hamstrings just as a cursory period of flexibility work after a gym session or a run, you probably don't need to do as much as that. But if you know that you've got a focused area of restriction in those hammies and you know that you're trying to improve your flexibility, then a good 10-minute session 3 or 4 times a week, you really should start to see some gains with that. As always, do not push into pain. As always, expect slow progress, so don't force it if you're not getting progress. Just take your time to be consistent, and it's all about the consistency that will get you there. Okay, hope you enjoyed that one. Give it a go, let me know what you think. See you later.